Hello and welcome to the PocketGamer.biz podcast Week in Mobile Games, where we chat about the week's news and provide some insights. Craig Chapple, Head of Content at PocketGamer.biz. With me as ever is our Deputy Editor, Paige Cook, and our News Editor, Aaron Astle. How you both doing? Paige, what have you been up to?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I actually played a different game for a change. I played Reanimal. It only came out, I think, like last weekend. Me and my partner, it's like a co-op game. We completed it in maybe like 2 sittings. I think it was only like a 4 or 5 hour game, so pretty short, but it's from the same people that did Little Nightmares 1 and 2, if you're familiar with those. It was really good. It's like a survival horror game, but also kind of adventure. So that was good. Nothing else really special, but I'm not really around with work next week because I'm going to Belfast, which was kind of a spur of the moment decision. So it's my nephew's 16th birthday. So we've decided me, my partner, my sisters, and my nephew are going to Belfast. He wants to go to the Titanic Museum. He wants to do the Game of Thrones tour. I don't know many 16-year-olds that want to spend their birthday with their mum and their aunties at the Titanic Museum, but that's what he wants. So that's what we're doing. So I'm looking forward to that.
I like the dedication to the interests,
Yeah.
the hobbies.
Yeah.
I actually went and did the Game of Thrones tour stuff when I was 16, so that's a crazy
Well,
coincidence.
maybe it is tradition. Maybe it is a thing. Maybe that's what you want to do. I was like, you know what? If that's what you want, that's what we'll do.
But it's very cool. Yeah, I'm sure that'll be a great birthday.
Yeah, he loves that stuff.
What do you see on the tour?
I don't really know. Like, I just booked it. I think it's like a lot of stuff from like just the show. I guess like from the sets and things. Correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron, if you've been.
I mean,
but
there's
yeah.
various bits you can book, but I'd imagine if it's like around Belfast, there's probably quite a lot of Winterfell, like Series 1 type stuff. Like I went to the Winterfell Castle, did some archery where they do it in episode 1, and they had various costumes and stuff. I got to wear the Hound's helmet that he wears in episode 1, which was pretty cool, quite heavy. And then it's actually really close to there where they filmed the like where Walder Frey lives. So you can basically, like, I think we hired some bikes and just sort of cycled over there. We actually met some of the real direwolves as well, like the huskies, whatever they were. I think they were some kind of crossbreed that were actually in the show, which was quite cool. I hope they're still around. Obviously, that was 10 years ago. But yeah, I guess it depends what you book. We also went to where they filmed a lot of the Iron Island stuff, which was pretty cool. But yeah, no, I'm sure that'll be great.
Yeah, because when I went to Croatia on holiday, I can't remember when it was, a year or so ago. Obviously, Dubrovnik is kind of like the basis of what King's Landing is. So when we went there, we saw a lot of like King's Landing type stuff for the tour that was there. So yeah, I think like Belfast is a bit different. But yeah, that's what he wants. Yeah, I'm excited on the Titanic Museum. I always hear really good stuff about that as well. So we're being very typical tourists, basically.
All right, thanks, Paige. Aaron, what have you been up to?
So I went out in Oxford last weekend. On the Friday, I went out with a friend. There was like a kind of goth music night, which I don't consider myself goth. Like, my hair's brown, not black for starters, but it's long enough that I think I can get away with going to those kinds of things without looking out of place. And it was quite good, like, because I'm not a massive like club person, but this was kind of like a club, but it was all kind of 80s music, kind of, you know, on heavier-ish side of that. You had like New Order, Depeche Mode stuff, some Blondie as well, which was like remixed to be a little bit kind of harder, I guess. So I actually had quite a good night out doing that. And a lot of people, I mean, I wasn't particularly expecting this. I thought, you know, there'd be people doing like, you know, the white makeup and, you know, basically white and black contrast, which there was. A lot of people in basically Halloween costumes as well, which was interesting.
Oh, that sounds like good fun. Thanks, Aaron. In terms of me, I guess I haven't done too much, but I did watch another film. I've been watching quite a lot lately. I watched a film called The Long Walk, which is based on a Stephen King novel. And I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. The film is exactly what it says. It's like 30 people or something like that. Guys in like it's always dystopian, right? In a dystopian America in like the 70s, they basically have to go on this walk, and it's all televised. And They have to maintain a speed of over 3 miles per hour, and they can't stop until there's one person left. They get some warnings if they do stop. But it's just really good how impressive how they put it all together and make a coherent, fun film out of people just walking in one direction for 2 hours. I do recommend it if you've not seen it. And I also watched The Ballerina, which is the John Wick spin-off. And I don't know if I'm just tired. I don't know how I could be tired of John Wick films because the action is great. I was just like, it's just another John Wick, isn't it? Except this.
I haven't seen that one yet.
There's nothing inherently wrong with it. I don't know. It's just people getting shot and stabbed. I was just, I don't know. It's always so well put together. I can't put my finger on why I didn't quite connect with it. I had to watch it in 2 sittings because I just got a bit bored. Right, we'll jump into things. So, as always, Pocket Gamer Connects. We've got a few events coming up. I'll be at GDC. Got my visa now. It's all sorted. Record time. We've got PGC Summit San Francisco on March 9th. So, please join us for that if you're in town. And then other events, we're in Dubai, May 20th, 21st. Sweden, May 27th, 28th. Barcelona, June 15th, 16th. Shanghai, July 30th. Helsinki, October 30th, 14th. Bangkok, October 27th, Jordan, November, Gran Canaria, December. So if you remember any of the things I just said, please do check them out. And obviously, as I always say, Mobile Games Awards in August as well. So plenty going on. Plenty stuff indeed. So we'll kick off the first story. Really, really fascinating one, this. Scopely has acquired a majority stake in Istanbul's Pixel Flow developer Loom Games at a valuation in excess of 1 billion. If you don't know this game, Pixel Flow, it's pretty new. It's, how do I describe it? There's like a pixelated drawing in the middle, all different colors, and then you have like a square going around that. We have these pigs flying around the screen, I guess, going around a circuit, and then they shoot out the colors, and that's basically the game. It's hybrid casual, so it makes its money from in-app purchases and ads. It was launched in October. This is how crazy this story is. And it's like scaled incredibly well. I think we had the exclusive on the investment. So it raised investment. Sorry, the investment was announced in January. And it wasn't announced, but we understand it was I think 7 figures, the figure seed investment with Arcadia Gaming Partners. Partners is Akit Babiyagit and early stage fund E2VC. And the game was said to be already making daily 7 figures as well. So absolutely insane growth. And imagine, so within 4 months, effectively, I know, forgetting the development stuff, which takes time. That's kind of since release to now, and the investment. It's just like within 4 months, you're selling at that valuation. So I guess not a lot of the terms were revealed, right? But the transaction is based on a multi-year performance-based structure. So there is a world in which, it doesn't get anywhere near $1 billion, right? It's off to a very good start. But yeah, like just crazy. And crazy also for the investors if you assume that they're getting like a big cut of that as well. Imagine you've just invested in this like probably at the end of last year or some point last year, and you're already exiting at a unicorn status. So Turkey's games industry is proving once again it's got to be unstoppable, the mobile business right now. So brilliant. Some other quick stats. Pixel Flow apparently has been played by more than 10 million people, has millions of daily active users, and Scopely claimed Pixel Flow is the only casual game released in the last 12 months to break into the monthly top 20 grossing rankings in the US. I need to double check this because Century Games has released a merge game that's doing well. So I'm gonna check that on the next story and I'll come back. But but anyway, a super, super successful game. We did ask a couple questions. So we got some answers from Scopely's Chief Revenue Officer and board member, Tim O'Brien. So we kind of asked, why would you do it this early? Because it's, again, extraordinary early. And one of the quotes he said was, delivered some of the strongest engagement metrics we've seen on mobile over the past year. Very incredible. I asked about, are you worried about copycats? Because we've already actually seen quite a few come on the market. And, if there's a successful new category on mobile, you can bet other companies are going to get in on that. And he just simply said, Pixel Flow's team has already shown they can create something distinctive that engages players daily. And that kind of engagement isn't easily replicated. Copycats may appear, but durable player engagement and ongoing innovation are what sustain game experiences. And that's exactly what the team has demonstrated to date. So I think they do face a bit of a challenge, especially if Chinese publishers kind of getting in on this. So yeah, kudos to the team. We've got some more quotes that have come in from Loom Games themselves, the developer of Pixel Foe. I haven't put a story out on that yet. We'll have that on Friday. So please do check that out as well, and our coverage on the site. Crazy story. I love it. So anyway, we're going to move on. Aaron, what have you got?
So first up from me this week is the State of Video Gaming in 26 report. So this is Matthew Ball's report, which is incredibly thorough. Can't go through every detail here, but I sort of covered some highlights on the site earlier in the week. The report covers quite a spectrum of topics, like the layoffs, kind of investment opportunity, how different countries are comparing at the moment. There was quite a striking quote that we pulled where Matthew Ball had said that China is eating the video games industry, which I think is a fair comment from some of our previous coverage, particularly of new game releases. They all seem to be from Asia these days. But I guess to kind of pick out a few highlight numbers from it. So the games industry as a whole across platforms grew for the third consecutive year, but private funding continued to fall, so it was down another 55% year over year in 2025. The last 3 months of the year saw less than $100 million in pre-seed investment, just over $200 million in early stage investment, and in total about 40 deals in Q4. Like by comparison, on the graph that Matthew Ball had put together, the best period for deals was Q4 2021, so 4 years earlier, and there were over 210 at that point in time. And then it's down to 40 at the minute. So that obviously is a huge drop. And then in kind of the value of investments for early stage, that peaked in Q3 2021 at about 1.3 billion, and then for pre-seed private funding that peaked in Q1 2022 at over 400 million, and again they're down to like 201 million now, not 100 million, sorry. So certainly those are down, which I think we saw people were kind of feeling that and talking about it at Pocket Gamer Connect London this year. That seemed like quite a prevalent topic in the talks that I sat in on, at least, of people saying like how difficult it is to get funding at the moment. So I guess that those numbers very much back up that sentiment. But a little bit more positive, the report revealed that kind of global games content sales grew by 5% year over year, despite these kind of limited funding opportunities, and actually hit an all-time high of just under 200 billion in 2025, which surpassed the prior record set in 2021. So again, this is across mobile, PC and console. He added as well that for mobile specifically, he said, so the old giants strengthen and UA costs crowd out discovery. So obviously, although things are kind of improving, it's very hard for new games. It tends to be the older ones that are kind of still making money, which I guess like last week we talked about Supercell. I guess they're a good example of that, struggling with their newer releases, but then the older ones are still carrying on. And as I say, the report covers many different subjects, particularly like China growing its share of the games market, and sort of how important it is for overseas developers to try and reach some of those Chinese players. We could spend the whole podcast on this, so I think I'll call it there and just advise people to go and read.
It's a really interesting report, as always, with Matthew Ball. It's like great analysis, 164 pages, so it's pretty exhaustive. So you need a long while to look at it. But yeah, really interesting. So thanks for delving into that, Aaron.
Yeah,
Paige,
right.
what have you got?
From me, we've got some Call of Duty news. So Activision has confirmed that Call of Duty Warzone Mobile is officially shutting down on April 17th this year. Essentially, the reason is that it's failed to meet their expectations. Players can still access it until then, but the servers after that will go offline permanently. So this one isn't it's not like it's a sudden surprise. It's been coming for a little minute. The game was delisted from the app stores back in May of last year. So, like no new content, purchases were disabled. I think like social features were taken out and things like that. So yeah, it's not a sudden closure. It's more of a final step in what we knew was going to happen anyway. But yeah, they sort of said that like it succeeded in bringing that Call of Duty aesthetic, that experience to mobile, but it just didn't resonate with mobile first players the way that it has with console and PC. And I think like an important thing with that is it just shows that like the issue with sometimes what works well on console and PC doesn't always work well on mobile. Even a huge name like Call of Duty, you'd think sometimes just a huge IP name bring that over and you're going to get people to play, but that's not always the case. Mobile's highly competitive as well. There's always, there's the thing of like obviously a lot of people have so many mobile games on their phone and they're the ones that they stick with, and for them to pick up your game, sometimes they're going to drop another one. And then the other part of it is obviously there is another Call of Duty game on mobile, so they did kind of make it clear that the focus would be towards just Call of Duty mobile instead. So maybe it does make more sense that they just put all their effort into one game rather than spreading it between the two. Yeah, and I always kind of found that a strange concept anyway, having Call of Duty mobile and Call of Duty Warzone mobile. Like, I feel like some people just didn't even realize that there were two separate things. So yeah, obviously it's a shame that it hasn't really worked out for them, but yeah, I can't say that I'm massively surprised. So yeah, we'll see what happens with just the normal Call of Duty mobile, if there ends up being more players on there, or if it just sort of stays at a steady pace. But yeah, so April 17th, Call of Duty Warzone mobile will be no more.
I would have said this before, but it's just like the whole reason that game exists is because Activision obviously wanted to kind of separate itself from Tencent, and I think probably take more of that money for itself. But then, like you just said, you're then competing with a very successful shooter game that has basically the same name, and you're competing with Tencent. So good luck, Godspeed. I'm not speaking to the quality of the game or anything. I'm sure the devs did a great job, but I think the idea to launch that game just seemed a bit flawed to me, and then it's just tough out there.
This is like a completely random side thought to go down, but I was also thinking the other day how, like obviously like Battle Royale games had this huge boom and all of a sudden nobody was playing a Battle Royale and then all of a sudden everything was a Battle Royale. I keep seeing so many things about extraction shooters now. I don't know if it's just because games like Arc Raiders have become popular, which is, there's always been games like Tarkov and stuff like that, but they're a lot more competitive, I suppose, whereas something like Arc Raiders has opened it up to maybe more of a casual audience, which seems to be the consensus. And then I'm not sure when it's out off the top of my head. Early March, I think there's Marathon, which is Bungie's new game. That's an extraction shooter. So I keep thinking in my head, are we now going to be in a time where shooters all of a sudden everything's an extraction shooter? Do we see a mobile extraction shooter soon? I don't know. But yeah, I just keep seeing lots of sort of chatter about that. And yeah, I just feel like, is that, even though it's not new, because extraction shooters have been around a long time, but is it going to sort of be the new Battle Royale where it's maybe made for sort of casual players as well as more competitive players?
I feel like with extraction shooters, so much money has been thrown in by the world's biggest publishers to try and make it happen, and there was no real evidence of a mass market there. Even though Escape from Tarkov, I think, did well, it wasn't really until Arc Raiders. But I guess, we'll see with Marathon and others.
Mm.
Is it just one game? Is it just one game, really, that takes over the market? Or is it actually a market? I don't know. It's been a long time. I'm not convinced that we'll see loads of them, but maybe.
No, me neither. I'm not convinced either. But yeah, I do just keep seeing lots of talk about it. So I guess we'll see.
Really interesting. All right, thanks, Paige. So the other story I've got is possibly a bit late, but I did the January 2026 mobile chart. So I did a bit of an analysis on the top revenue generators, top downloaded games, top publishers, etc. I'll just go through very quickly some of the highlights. I've probably spoken about them a bit before. One of them, we spoke a lot about at Supercell last week. So Clash Royale was kind of one of the big stories in January. So last year had a really big turnaround, generated like an estimated just under 650 million gross revenue, according to Magic, which was up about 148% year over year. But then come January, that actually fell quite significantly. So player spending fell by about 49% to 37 million in January. Now, it was still the 26th top-grossing mobile game worldwide. 37 million is fantastic, but it's just a very significant fall from where it was. Ilkka Paananen did speak about kind of negative reaction to some of the latest updates. They had that little bit of content creator controversy recently, but not covered in January revenue. So I guess we'll see what trajectory that is on. Can it get back to the top? I don't know. It would be a very different year for Supercell if it can't have yet another game that surges in revenue again. Can they do it? We'll see. That'll paint a very different picture for the company come next year's blog, especially if they haven't managed to release a hit game. Another thing was PUBG Mobile is back on the up. So it actually dipped. That was another one that actually dipped quite significantly at the end of last year. Again, still making a lot of money, but just not at all where it was. And a lot of that money comes from China. But the revenue is actually back on the up. In January, spending increased 93.2% from December to 147 million. So it's doing exceptionally well again. And as we were just saying, shooters competitive, but yeah, they managed to get player spending back up. So maybe Clash Royale can do it, but I think it's two very different stories. And then I'll just do these other quick revenue sort of takeaways. So Honor King was back on top for the first time since October, so actually had a couple months dethroned there. Tasty Travels is a new merged title from Century Games. I actually forgot to look it up after I said. But anyway, it ranks in the top 50. In the top 50 top grossing lists. It was the third top grossing merged game in January, so that's actually another casual title that's doing well. I don't know how it's doing in the US. I can have a check. Ark Knights Enfield actually launched in January and entered straight in 39th place. Valorant Mobile had its best month to date, and there's a couple other interesting stories there. And then the other thing I did want to mention is Microfun, again, which makes other merge games, so Gossip Harbour, and it's really just grown that category kind of astronomically in terms of revenue potential. It's now one of the world's top 10 grossing publishers on the App Store and Google Play, which is kind of a fantastic achievement, and a lot of that is down to Gossip Harbour, but it also has Seaside Escape doing well, so they're kind of able to replicate it to other titles. I guess we'll see how it's doing by the end of the year. But again, as you kind of mentioned earlier as well, Aaron, it's an example of a Chinese developer kind of taking over, as it were. And also shout out to Miniclip for being for ranking top of the download charts. I had a look through it. It took a little while, but I believe, unless I misread, which is always possible, but I believe Miniclip being top is the first time that Azure Games hasn't been top since August 2020. For games publisher downloads. So yeah, shout out to them. If you're wondering why, they've got a new release, Arrow's Puzzle Escape. That's been pumping out good installs, and Headball 2. I don't have it in front of me. I think it's made by Masomo. Miniclip acquired. Actually had its best month for downloads to date in January. Made 5.6 million installs, and that title was first launched in 2018. Lots of stuff happening at Miniclip, I guess. Well done to them. Aaron, what else have you got?
Yeah, so the other story from me this week is a Pokemon Go story, and it is that the PvP battles have been revamped, which are intended to now focus more on skill and less on hardware and network limitations. So traditionally in the game, moves could deal damage like in the middle of what it considers a turn. It's not quite as turn-based as the main series, but I guess internally there's this idea of what a turn is, but damage could be dealt in the middle of it, which would sometimes allow a player's attack to take place before the others, and through latency, like laggier hardware when you're tapping the screen to try and use attacks. I guess the better phone you have, I guess the better that's going to register and the more quickly. And then you've got obviously like internet as a variable for different people depending on where they are. So this has meant that battles weren't always entirely predictable. Like you could come in with the same Pokemon and the same stats and do the same things and get different results, down to these differences in hardware and internet, which is the Go team have decided to change and make the battles more predictable. They said that outcomes should be driven by player choices, not game state quirks, device differences, or momentary network hiccups. And they said that as the PvP community has grown more competitive, players have pushed the system to its limits. So yeah, they've made changes to make damage resolve, as they word it, at the end of each turn instead of during a turn. And then energy now gets rewarded at the same time, which you kind of fill up to be able to use a kind of special attack. So the idea is to make it, I guess, more predictable in the sense that if you're really into the competitive scene, you can plan out your team and actually, play test, I guess, how that team would compete against other combinations of Pokemon without these elements that were out of your control. So it sounds like it's quite a big change. They said that it's kind of focused at a foundational level. And obviously it's come a few months ahead of Pokemon Go's 10th anniversary. PvP side was introduced in December 2018, so it's not quite as old, but it's still quite a long time that battles have kind of worked in this way, and now that they're changing. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's a good thing. Like, on the one hand, more predictable battles might sound boring, but I guess if you're at high level competitive play and you lost because someone else's phone is a month old and yours is 3 years old, but your team is actually better and should have won, that's probably not a great feeling. Or if your internet lags, so you miss 5 seconds of thrashing the screen trying to do attacks, and then your Pokemon gets knocked out. I guess it is kind of fairer if they've changed like when the damage is kind of registered, and how the attacks play out. I suspect it's overall going to be like kind of a welcome change. Whether it's going to, I kind of don't imagine it's going to suddenly have a massive impact on spending or anything, but I'm sure it's something that the really long time players are probably going to appreciate. I guess on the subject of Pokemon and anniversaries, I'll quickly plug/tease that. So the 30th anniversary of the series is on Friday the 27th of February. I would keep an eye out for a kind of Pokemon related feature on the site somewhere around that time that I'm quite excited about. So yeah, just bear that in mind. Little preview for everyone there.
Always like a bit of a preview, bit of a tease for the site. It's always good. Check out the site next week. We'll have some stuff for what is a very big anniversary for one of the biggest entertainment franchises in the world, if not the biggest. Depends if Wikipedia made it up, because I think that is the only source of Pokemon being the biggest entertainment franchise in the world.
No, they wouldn't have made it up.
They wouldn't make it up, yeah. Joe Bloggs somewhere wouldn't do that. Thanks for that, Aaron. Paige, rounds out. What have you got?
Last one from me is some Unity stuff. Aaron took a look at Unity's shares recently, which have taken a pretty serious hit. So when Aaron did the story, the shares were closing in at around just over $18. That was on February 17th. I looked just before the podcast and I feel like it was in a similar place today as well, so not really much change there. But yeah, overall that's down like nearly 60% since the start of the year, which is an even bigger 91% drop from their peak in 2021. So even compared to last year, stocks are still down like double digits. And this isn't just some sudden drop. I feel like with shares, sometimes it's a little bit, like if you're looking at them every day, sometimes they drop and then a couple of days later it's like it didn't happen. These things can sort of fluctuate a little bit all over the place. But yeah, it does seem like a part of a bigger downward trend. Obviously, the important part, as for the reason as to why that's happening, I'm not sure that there is one solid reason. Even though, and this blows my mind that this was a couple of years ago now, obviously the Unity runtime fee, I still feel like that has this lingering sort of after effects of all of that. I feel like they've tried to clear a lot of that up. They've tried to earn back some good faith from that, but I think that just did so much damage that it's going to be a long time that's not still in people's minds, and just for their overall image as well. Like, it was just such a huge thing. Then there were sort of restructurings that followed that. There was the Iron Source acquisition, which I don't think that's really been fully delivered on yet, like the profitability that's sort of supposed to have driven. And then of course there's AI stuff too, which I think it was a couple of podcasts back we mentioned, obviously Google's Project Genie, that triggered multiple companies having sort of drops in shares, and Unity obviously being one of those two. even though Unity's CEO called it more of an accelerator than a threat. So yeah, it's a weird place for them. I think in like their actual financials, I think they said that revenue's up. They've got plenty going on. They've got their own work happening towards like a new upgraded Unity AI. So they do have all of these things happening, but obviously something isn't right in terms of how the company is actually perceived at the moment. And yeah, it's just really significant drops. So yeah, a bit of an odd one, really.
I guess like it's crazy. 91%. Was it just over 4 years has fallen? But I guess like there's a couple things. One, how much do we trust some of that investor sentiment? Obviously, it's born out of the reasons that you gave. One of the things I think that's happened though is, back in the day, if you think about way back when its share price was at like its all-time high, like why was that? And that was because they were splashing the cash on all these different investments that were kind of broadening Unity away from its core mission, which was to provide tools to make games and obviously the Unity ads business. And they made an acquisition of like Weta's tools, and that were really expensive, and then they ended up selling that really cheaply. And it's just like they were doing too much, and that was like artificially inflate, which is I think what these companies do. They don't necessarily always care about the actuality of like making it work now. They're just like, we'll make it work in future, is my perception. And that all came crashing down with the runtime fee eventually because they couldn't make any money. And then the whole company's fallen apart. And that's a very, I guess, basic way of looking at it. But I mean, we all want Unity. I think like a lot of people want Unity to do well, right? I hope it does. There's alternatives now. Unreal Engine has always been there with Godot. Interestingly, with Godot, I heard because it's like everyone kind of works on that engine. I think it's open source, but they're actually having challenges with AI agents creating pull requests or something like that. That's actually making it difficult for the people that work on it to find out. Okay, what are the real developments that have been added to the engine? We have to sort through that code, and what are the real requests being made? So, like the rival that some people are turning to is having some very serious problems. Everyone's struggling with AI in slightly different ways, or very different ways. Cool. All right. Thanks for that, Paige. So that brings us to the end of the week in mobile games. Thank you very much, Paige, Aaron, for being on the show.
Yeah, good to be here. Like I said, I'll miss next week's podcast, but when I'm back, I can tell everyone about the Game of Thrones tour.
I can't wait.
Looking forward to it.
Genuinely, I can't wait. Because maybe I'll do it. That sounds fun. Cool. Thanks everyone for tuning in and listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. Have a great weekend. We'll catch you next week. Have a good one. And enjoy your holiday, Paige. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.